Welcome, everybody. My name is Lisa Snyder. I am the co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer of Tokeativity. Welcome to our Tokeativity Clubhouse. Today, we are sharing about psychedelic and plant medicine experiences that have moved us. There are some folks in our community that are going to be sharing some of their experiences, and we hope that this inspires you. And if we have time, we will be tapping into the audience. So if you feel inspired to share, raise your hand. And as we make space for that, you can share some of your experiences. If you are new to Tokeativity, we are a global community of 56,000 active cannabis consumers and business owners that believe in cannabis normalization, equity, and empowerment of our modern consumption culture. We are also launching a marketing agency branch called Tokeativity Creative, where we help equitable cannabis businesses shine bright in the vast cannabis universe. If you are interested in working with us or becoming a member, visit tokeativity.com and get in touch. I would like to shout out to our brand partners, Kindleaf Pendleton and Sensi Magazine, for your support and dedication to the liberation of women through cannabis and also plant medicine. If you want to sponsor future events, head over to tokeativity.com/events. Look for the event you want to sponsor, click on register, select logo or link on the page. We also have larger sponsorship opportunities and ongoing brand partnerships. So reach out on our website. We would love to connect with you if you are looking to share more about what you're working on in the world. We have a ton of upcoming events. Our next one is our Psychedelics and Plant Medicine Tokeativity Social, which is next Wednesday, March 16th. It's online from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. This one is going to be focusing on, you guessed it, psychedelics and plant medicine. Our Tokeativity Social has been coined a beehive of activities by Rolling Stone. At this particular event, we will specifically be talking about a couple of really important topics, starting with the transformative power of NFTs in the psychedelic space. You've probably heard something about NFTs, maybe you've blocked it out, but we're going to be talking about it and how it can have an impact on the psychedelic space. We're also going to be talking about, in our Bridges room, psychedelics and our Black Indigenous community. And Miss Kindness, who is here with us, is going to be spearheading that space along with Tiffany Watkins. Another room we're going to be having at the social, and by the way, this is not a Zoom call. This is a very fun and interactive community conversation on our events platform. We're going to be talking about treating PTSD and other illnesses with psilocybin. And we also have a Cannapreneur Lounge and open mic, so you can come talk about your biz with us. It doesn't have to be in the psychedelic space. We are a cannabis-focused community, but we do acknowledge that cannabis is in the grander umbrella of plant medicine, and that means a lot of different things. And psilocybin is becoming more legal and acceptable, or decriminalized in certain places, and has a lot of powerful intentional use. And we're going to be talking about some of that today with some of our guests. We're also going to be having speed networking, which is brought to you by Women Employed in Cannabis. So if you'd like to meet other women who are employed in cannabis, or if you want to be employed in cannabis, come join the fun and speed network with the rest of us. We're also giving away a 4-day, 3-night stay at the Cannabis and Fungi Friendly Coral Cove Wellness Retreat in Jamaica, as well as a $300 travel gift card from Front Row Travels. So our entire lineup and all that stuff I just said can be found on the link above here or on our website, tokeativity.com/events. So before we get started, make sure you're following anybody you find interesting here on the stage, myself included, here on Clubhouse. And you just press on their picture and then you can click follow. You can also follow Tokeativity by clicking the little green house. All right, so please note we will be using the recording feature today, so you can listen to this conversation later. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you so much. I have a lot of gratitude for the folks that are joining me today, and we're going to share a little bit about their own psychedelic and plant medicine experience. Why don't we start off by very simply, before going into any stories or sharing, just simply say your name and where you're joining us from, and I will call upon you, and we'll start with Miss Kindness.
Say my name, say my name. My name.
Miss Kindness.
My My name is Miss Kindness, and I am joining from Chino Hills, California, a suburb outside of Los Angeles.
Woohoo! Welcome, Miss Kindness from California, Chino Hills. Amanda.
Hey everyone, my name is Amanda Breeze, and I am joining from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Woohoo! Canada in the house. What's up? Welcome, Canada sister. Michelle, where are you joining us from? We can come back to you, Michelle, if you want to unmute your mic, or you're doing something. Maybe you're getting something to eat. We'll come back to you. Jill.
Are you ready for me? It looks like Michelle just took herself off mute.
Okay, yeah, Jill, why don't you go, and then we'll come back to Michelle.
Great. Hi, I'm Jill Weiss. I'm here in San Francisco.
San Fran in the house. I like your icon there. I also
Thank
I
you.
like everybody's icons, but I like when it's like your name is right there.
Boom, makes it easy.
Boom. Okay, Michelle, you ready for us?
Hey, how's it going, Lisa? Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
No
Hey,
problem.
hey everybody. Michelle Martin, and I am in Chicago.
Illinois in the house. And I'm so happy to have so many folks from all across the country here, and not just the country, but North America. Our community is global, and this is a global conversation. And there's a lot of legalization movement in both America, the United States, and also in Canada. So there's a lot to talk about here. Excited to connect with you, Tay. Why don't you introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining us from?
Hey, this is Tay, and I'm joining you guys from the nation's capital. I'm in DC, and so I can't wait to network with everybody.
Oh, hey. DC in the house. Love it. And Bevan.
Oh my God. Hi, I'm Bevan. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. I'm so far north on a clear day. And the closest city is Port Townsend, where they just are legalizing psilocybin, which is very exciting.
Wow, that is really exciting. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, today. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and for those of you who don't know, we here in Oregon, the Measure 109 was passed this past year, or actually, I guess it's been 2 years now. A year and a half? I don't remember. It's been it's not totally legal here, but it's been decriminalized, and we are actually creating a psilocybin for therapeutic use program here. So it's really beautiful, and there's so much that I know is going to unravel here in Oregon. And so, part of the psychedelics and plant medicine movement is our experiences and our positive experiences, the ones that have moved us and changed us. And I've had some of my own. And we're here today to talk about, this very intimate subject of how we have used plant medicine, whether it be psilocybin, and we're talking mostly about other things other than cannabis here, and how that has changed us, and how we might use it for our benefit, um, and learn from each other. So why don't we start with Miss Kindness? And yeah, if you want to share a little bit about what drew you to this conversation today, and how plant medicine is weaved into your life.
Sure. Man, that's ah. Hmm. How did I? Okay, so I'm having a hard time because I feel like the question is broad, and I feel drawn to the plants. I've always felt drawn to plants, and naturally, cannabis is a huge part of my life. And then through cannabis, I felt safer to experiment with other plants, and most recently started microdosing or micro serving myself, I will say, with psilocybin in an attempt to cure some past traumas, let some things go, allow allow more neurons to connect in different ways. And I believed what I read and what I've been told in the community, and trusted it and gained access to it through a trusted colleague of ours and felt safe to try it and discovered all these amazing things. And this is all very recent for me. So this conversation, why I was drawn to it is because it's just so relevant. The timing is so relevant for me, and that I am like 3 months into microserving with psilocybin on a regular basis, and 2 months into complete alcohol. I removed alcohol completely for the month of January, and now I will occasionally drink, but I can't even have more than one or two drinks now. And so my physiology is changing, my biology is changing, my mentality is changing. I feel more connected to the truth, and it's easier for me to find when I ask myself questions. I can cut the fat now, and my boundaries are more clear. I feel more compassionate and patient, if you can believe that, because if you know me, I was already really compassionate and really patient. But I hope you all are laughing as you're muted, but I feel grateful, and it's just been a really wonderful experience. So if I can just talk for a little bit longer, I have now a regular dosing regimen that I follow. I weigh them out, I grind them up, I produce my own capsules, and I consume them in the same quantity at the same time. And I've tried different ways, like what am I eating before and after, to really experience how my body receives them. And I take breaks, and I have implemented new practices when I double my dose or triple my dose, because that experience is different. And I've just really come to appreciate the regularity of the titrating of the doses. And it feels like a new kind of supplement. I am having thoughts about more research and getting behind some initiatives, because we don't know enough, and I want to know more. And I want to make sure that I'm not doing harm. But so far, so great. And I'm complete.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about that and how microdosing, and you called it microserving, which I also thought was really interesting, has helped you. Um, how have you figured out what your microdose is, or how, what you've been able to figure out with your microserving for yourself? How do you figure that out?
Well, I use the same methods. It's a really good question, because I'm not using like a lab or anything, right? So for me, it's about quantity, and that's consistent. So I consistently, weigh out the dry material, raw material, and then grind it up, and then fill the capsules equally. And so I know that at the very least, that is how I'm doing it, as opposed to eating the raw material. You eat a cap, you feel differently than when you eat a stem, and those sorts of things. And so I have found over the last couple of weeks, months, that I know what to expect now, and I'm looking forward to it. That little edge off that I receive about 45 minutes after I take a capsule.
Taking off the edge and adding, not just taking things off, but adding to, it sounds like adding more patience to your life. And what other, how else did you describe it? More patience, and what
I
else?
think the best word to describe, to encompass everything I've felt so far, is clarity.
Clarity, yes. There is something about psilocybin that clears the cobwebs away, and I'm super curious about that from like a scientific point of view and also a spiritual point of view. Like, you can't hide from the truth, and sometimes we want to hide from the truth, and sometimes we actually need the truth desperately. Right? So it's, in microdoses, it can help also, still, like you said, with clarity as well. It's a different experience than going all in on like a higher dose and kind of tripping, if you will, like lots of people talk about. But microdosing can also help you with the clarity, sounds like.
It has very much done that for me. And to just give a number, I'm at about 0.15 grams in weight in what I consume in one capsule. And so if there are any scientists that join us today, I'm interested to know more about that too. But yeah, it's clarity is the perfect word I can give right now. And it's been great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for all of it.
Yes. um well, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more. And also, it's kind of interesting for those who are here and want to share like what their dose is. I think that's something that can't be talked about enough, is trying to figure that out, because it's not something you can just go buy in a store. and have it dosed for you like they do with cannabis, and have, you know, that whole thing. And we also are figuring out our own dosage with cannabis in general. Like, just because you get an eighth doesn't mean you're smoking the whole eighth, you know what I mean? Just because you buy a joint doesn't mean you're smoking the whole joint. Like, we all are trying to find our way with what feels really good for us. So and that's part of empowerment. So why don't we go to Amanda? Amanda, I feel like you have like a science background, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm a plant nerd. Yeah, super
Uh-huh.
plant nerd. But my introduction to mushrooms and psychedelics was stupidly in high school. So I started off a little dumb, at parties, but it wasn't till years later, when I was living in Oregon, that I learned that you can actually forage psychedelic mushrooms. And so I had a friend take me around the Oregon coast, right where the sand meets the trees, and you can just follow the tree line in the right season and actually wild forage psychedelics. So this was like a huge spiritual breakthrough for me, was discovering these cyanescents and actually having to walk around literal nature and find this like amazing thing. So for me, that was my sort of psychedelic spiritual awakening, where I realized it was so much more powerful than those times in high school. So that was very big for me, and that actually really sparked my passion for foraging and wild plants and plant medicine, and tying it back into the cannabis. Like that, all of those pieces just kind of came together for me all at once. When we would go foraging, there'd be a few of us, and I always thought it was so funny. Being a Canadian in the States, you're always very cautious about the laws, not wanting to get kicked out. And it was just so funny to me that this thing that just grows wild, like everywhere, is totally fine until you put it in your pocket. And then it's super illegal and super wrong. And I just thought that was so strange. And, we would wander around, kind of around like Manzanita. I don't want to reveal any of my secret spots, but in the sort of Manzanita area, we would wander around and pick it fresh. We would always eat the first one fresh. And the myth was sort of that once you ate the first one you found, that you would tap in to that like extra mushy sense to be able to find where all the others were. And then, we would collect them and dry them. So it's a little bit of a different experience eating them fresh versus dried. It's a little less potent in some ways because the chemicals haven't quite switched over from the psilocin to the psilocybin. So yeah, that was my original experience with mushrooms. And I would say in my youth, I definitely overdosed them, and had some very interesting breakthroughs. Whereas now I think I've definitely, like most people, sort of chilled out and go for more of the microdose vibe.
How interesting that you tried these things in high school, which I think a lot of folks do in some party situation, because you're like, ooh, I'm gonna do drugs and it's gonna be so fun and whatever. But like, there's just so much more spirituality to plant medicine and psilocybin than is really talked about, except if you're doing them and you're having these kind of conversations or whatever. I'm curious about how you learned how to forage.
Yeah, so I was very nomadic for many years, so I was always kind of living in the woods. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I lived outside for many, many years. And I had a friend who was living on the Oregon coast who was really into mushrooms. And he was actually a landscaper. So he was finding them all the time, like the cyanescens, like all the time, because they really love to grow in places where there are people. So on one hand, you could go to like a remote area and wander around and find some like deep in a brambly bush, but also we would very often find them in like near church parking lots, along the side of the highway, in like public parks in the wood chips, these like wavy caps, you find them just like growing everywhere. So I was really lucky to have a friend sort of show me the ropes. And there's also a few really solid mushroom foraging books, like the North American Autobahn. It's an amazing resource if that's something you're interested in doing. So that's sort of how I discovered them. And, that's sort of the magic of folk medicine is just people passing on this information to other people. And one thing I'd love to add is actually the cyanescence. What's really cool about them, once you've identified it, the brown wavy cap, there's some features that you're looking for. As they're drying, if you pinch the stalk, it bruises this blue color. So it's an identifier, but once they're dried, they look really psychedelic. So there's all these like really cool moments that you don't necessarily get when you're just buying them online or through a friend.
Thank you so much for that insight and those resources. And how cool that you've been on this journey and that it sounds like you've learned a lot about yourself, a lot about plants along the way, and I can hear your passion about plants and your excitement around it. So, do you have before we move on, do you have a go-to dose for yourself?
These days I've been keeping it really chill, without sort of revealing too much. I was in a bit of a hippie cult for a moment, might have overdone the psychedelics. So I like to keep it really chill these days. And I would say a 0.2 or maybe a 0.3 microdose generally, because I'm trying to not repeat certain sections of my life.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for sharing.
of course.
Really appreciate it.
So great to be here.
I didn't know that you if you eat them fresh that they're not as potent and that they haven't really quite switched over. But how cool also to think about if you do eat them fresh that they're going to tell you where the rest of them are.
Yeah, it's kind of like cannabis in the way that you want to cure it. Like it has that chemical reaction through the drying process. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. Well, thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm going to invite Michelle up here. Michelle and I met through Women on Psychedelics, a really cool community of women who are talking about psychedelics and psychedelic movement. So, welcome, Michelle.
Thanks, Lisa. Great to be here. And, I'm here because I love Tokeativity. I think I've been a member for a couple years now and just really enjoyed the platform, networking with all kinds of people and, getting educated, because, I've been in the arena in psychedelics for a couple years now, but it's like just brushing the surface. So there's so many really cool things going on. So yeah, it's gaining some momentum, finally.
Yeah, it really is. And the more we talk about it, the more people feel comfortable talking about it. I feel like it's been so hush hush for so long, kind of like cannabis
Yeah.
has, and it still is in many, many places. And I feel like the places where where cannabis has been legalized, we're like, okay, that's cool. What's next?
Yeah.
And it's opened a lot of doors. So I'm curious about your involvement in Women on Psychedelics, and I'm curious about how what your relationship with it has been, or any positive experiences you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out like 25 years ago as an advocate in mental health and mental illness. And it really just touched my soul to use my voice for people that couldn't. And, over time I learned a lot and I became someone who, suffered from depression for many years. And, as an advocate, I wanted to speak up and be open about it. And so I learned as much as I could. But, I got on SSRIs like, a lot of us have been, and they worked. But I felt like they really weren't solving, like they were treating, but they weren't solving things for me. And when I experienced plant medicine, it changed my life. No more SSRIs, no more depression. I became this advocate. I moved from, of course, I'm still a mental health advocate, but God, it's just amazing to me all the changes and the benefits that I've seen within myself, that I've seen within other people. And the more that I talk about it, to your point, the more that we talk about it, the more people are comfortable talking about it. And 25 years ago, no one wanted to talk about mental illness, right? The stigma was so bad, and psychedelics, still has a stigma, but I think that the two in tandem and really looking at, everything in the world that's going on right now, but looking at how people can benefit. And it can happen, fairly quickly in the grand scheme of things, and it's going through the experience, and then also what I think is so key is going through an integration plan, right? So you have a plan, you have your goals, you stick to them, you focus on, changing your habits. We're all in different places, but I think we find our path, and with plant medicine, it opens up so many different branches.
I want to talk about integration plan because you're the first person that's mentioned something like that specific. And we talk about microdosing, and we talk about psilocybin, we talk about foraging, and all kinds of question marks about where do you even get this stuff. But integration plan, can you talk a little bit more about what that really means for somebody that he's either done it for the first time or continues to experiment with it?
Yeah, I think the plants are, and I using numbers. I think the plant and the experience with a plant medicine or psychedelics is probably 30 or 40% of the whole, and the rest is how you apply it to your life, right? How you make those changes, and when like I do work with Heroic Hearts Project, and we send veterans in different places to experience plant medicine to come off of opioids to treat PTSD and all the things that they have gone through. Part of that is a 3 to 6 month integration plan where they take what they want to change, what kind of habits they want to change, stop, and working with a therapist, working with a group, working with a friend, you hold accountable, you hold each other accountable, I think can really go a long way. And I think it's so important because and I've seen it happen in both in great positive ways. And I've seen people that experience over and over and over again, but they don't take that next step, and that might not be, they obviously may have other plants that might be more helpful for them, but I think that it's just part of the big picture.
That is so helpful. Thinking about, not just how are we consuming plant medicine and psilocybin, but how are we integrating it into our life? And when you said that, it kind of brought me back to my first time when I went to Amsterdam. I bought mushrooms, legally in a store. They call them fungi. It came with a pamphlet, which I thought was really fucking cool. And but I didn't know like how much to take, and I ended up taking a lot. And I thought I was going to go to the Van Gogh Museum, but instead I just talked to myself for about 6 hours. But it was like 6 hours of therapy, which felt like 6 months of therapy, or maybe even 6 years. I processed so much stuff and things that were hiding underneath the surface, and I didn't even realize I had my own integration plan. I didn't even know what that even meant though, but how I integrated that afterwards was I had a discovery around like uh forgiving an ex about all kinds of messed up things that happened, and also realizing that I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to quit my job and work full time for myself. And that was the biggest change I ever made in my entire life. It was like getting clear about that and integrating in that psilocybin experience in the years to come. And so ever since then, I've never worked for anybody else other than myself, and of course, the people and clients that I'm working and supporting or whatever. But um, it wasn't to get off of anything. It was like to get on to something else,
Yeah,
in life.
yeah, yeah, and it opened up a whole new world, right? And that's really magical, it really is. And I think you bring up a really good point, Lisa, because you talk about how you were your own. The onus was on you, right? You had a journal, you wrote things down, perhaps, or you put things out there, and you held yourself accountable. And there's people that can't afford, let's say, can't afford therapists or don't have that access right now to close friends and physically. Keeping a journal and keeping a log, what you're microdosing, how you're feeling, and keeping your goals and what you want, because it's almost like, you speak, you talk to the mushrooms, and we do, and they help you. It seems, if you've experienced mushrooms, you know this. Psilocybin is such a magical plant, and it settles. If you do the work, it does create magnificent changes.
Yes, it does. It really does. And I have a couple of times done some focused psilocybin experiences where I've been like, okay, I'm intentionally going in here, but you don't always get the answers from what you're intending. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you get other answers that are under the surface. So it's so interesting how, depending on your intentions and depending on what's going on for you and what you truly need to know, they will tell you. And that's really so spiritually fascinating to me.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I'm going to add, because I saw this article in Forbes, I want to say it was about a year and a half ago, and Forbes has been good at, kind of reaching outside and talking about things, or the journalist. And they posted an article, and they said 20 minutes of bufo, which is otherwise known as a toad, which is a psychedelic medicine from a toad, equals 10 years of therapy. And, it just kind of goes to speak to how much certain psychedelics, plant medicine, whatever works for you, can open you up and help you on your journey to healing.
That's so interesting you said that. Somebody in the chat here, John, says, can anyone comment on having experiences that felt like 1,000 years long? Well, he says, to me, from when I was born until now feels like pretty damn long. I can't imagine 10 plus lifetimes, especially in a psychedelic state. Well, I guess what that comment to me means is when you are having, depending on your experience, time is weird. Time doesn't feel like regular time. So I imagine that's maybe what he's talking about. And yeah, it's just not comparable to the regular time of this life, which is bizarre in and of itself. We all have to use a clock to direct us in our days. And I do recommend, if you are trying something for the first time, um, hopefully you have a friend who is experienced, or a trip sitter or something, that can help you with your overall experience. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate your insight here. And I encourage everybody to check out what Michelle's up to on Women in Psychedelics. They're on all kinds of platforms, and you should definitely follow her here on Clubhouse. Let's go to Jill. Jill, welcome. And thanks so much for taking the time out to talk with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Loving the conversation.
It's so good.
Yes, yeah, some really great points Michelle was bringing up, especially around preparation and integration. And I guess I just want to, before I tell my story, just say I believe so much in the power of set and setting. I see it in my clients. I'm a psychedelic journey guide myself. I see it in my clients when they try to do this on their own. A lot of people have beautiful experiences. I have as well. But especially for people new to the medicine, it can be really important for them to work with somebody, even if it's a friend, to help them do the proper preparation and integration. So I'm really glad that Michelle was speaking to that. Yeah, so I just wanted to tell the story of what kind of brought me into doing this work. Um, I was a solo performer and artist, writing one-woman shows and touring around the country in Canada, and, you know, barely able to support myself doing the artist thing. Lots of antidepressants, just trying to get by. And I would say I was a successful performer, which led to me kind of getting a following. And in that following, people started coming to me and asking me to help them with their shows. So they would come to me with a pile of paper and say, how do I turn this into a living, breathing experience? And so I started this coaching business of working with solo performers, men and women. And, there was a percentage of them that were experienced actors. So what we were working on was like advanced acting skills and staging, which was really juicy. But the majority of them were people I found that had written their life story or written a story from their life and wanted to get up on stage and perform it for the first time often. And in working with them, what I found was we were doing something so much deeper than just acting skills and movement. It was helping people really embody their stories, their greatest triumphs and their darkest moments, and put it on stage and lay bare in front of an audience. And it became this sort of healing, cathartic work that we were doing, which led me to kind of this opening of like I'm wanting to move into this space somehow, and this is this healing space of working with story. So I didn't know where that was taking me. I felt really lost. I knew I had this longing, and so I decided to pursue a life coaching certification. But I still like it was meaningful, but it still felt a little lost. Like this isn't exactly what I'm looking for. And then boom, the pandemic hit. All my clients dried up. Of course, nobody was performing or traveling or anything. And I just went into this deep existential crisis. And I had heard about people working with guides. Up to that point, I had done plenty of medicine myself, but I think I could call it drugs at that point because I really wasn't using it medicinally. So I decided to work with this guide. I went up to the mountains of Colorado and did psilocybin, did mushrooms, and had a really life-changing experience where I noticed my I want to say the lens that I'd been living through, like almost like a piece of glass I'd been looking at life through. Everything through this glass was black and white. It was right and wrong. It was good and bad. It was pretty and ugly. It was hard. It was very hard. Everything in my life had been very difficult. And I realized that I was making it that way, that I was looking through the hard lens. And in this journey, I was able to just like uh, shift the lens over and look through a lens of ease, a lens of gray, where there was no right or wrong, there was no good or bad, there just was. And I saw this easy path. I didn't see it like, okay, the next thing you need to do after this trip is you need to, sign up for this program and fire that person. And wasn't like that. It was like a somatic embodiment of ease and this deep knowing that that was available to me now. And all I could think as I came out of the medicine was, please God, let it stick. Um, and it did. It stuck. And my entire life shifted. And the impact on it, I mean, I don't want to misguide anybody that like the things that I've done since then have been quote unquote difficult things, many of them, but they weren't done in a difficult way. There was an ease, there was a flow. It's almost like I was walking upstream my entire life, and I just simply decided to turn the other direction and put my hands back and float. Doesn't mean there weren't rocks that was floating past. It doesn't mean it wasn't murky at times, but it just felt like such an ease that came in, and that impact on my life was so huge that I knew that my calling was to be facilitating other people working with these medicines, and I just poured myself into it. And I now have a thriving psychedelic journey practice where I work with people doing preparation, doing the journey, doing integration. And I have to say, I've been just in the flow of life. I've been off all the antidepressants, all of that stuff. It's changed my life. Um, and and I just want this for the world. I want this to be accessible.
Wow, Jill. What a profound moment in your life where you were able to see the get the clarity, as we talked about earlier with Ms.
Mm,
Kindness,
mhm,
and see how you were participating in your life and in the movie of your life. through the lens of your experiences um and filters. I
Exactly.
love Abraham Hicks and like the
Hmm.
work that they do. There's a lot of like really, for me, clean explanations about why things are the way they are and the way that we see the world and whatnot, and how easy it was after you were able to see that you were able to integrate in the changes simply by knowing your new truth. You had your own truth before, but now you have a new truth.
Absolutely. And it was a truth that I had conceptualized before, but never had I truly embodied it. And the mushrooms guided me to that internal wisdom, and there was no undoing it. Like it's like one of you said this, and it might have been you, Lisa, that once you see something in the medicine, you can't unsee it. This was me. This was my new life. This was what life had always been, but I just hadn't been able to access it.
It's really interesting how stuff is always there, but we somehow can't see it. We're like
Yeah.
blocked somehow or for some reason by other things that are distracting to us, by other experiences, by repetitive thought patterns,
Yes.
that you believed everything was so hard and so therefore you made it hard. There is
Absolutely.
sounds
And it's
like.
like, I think I was going to the medicine saying, well, I hope this mushroom will teach me something. And what I found and what I find with my clients that I'm working with is that it's just a mushroom. What it does is it just peels back a few of the layers that are in the way between you and yourself having a really deep, honest conversation. That's all it is. That's what the preparation is designed to do, to just facilitate you, nothing being in the way of you and yourself having a really deep, deep conversation. And integration is just integrating that conversation into your life in a meaningful, sustainable way. That's all it is.
Mm,
And there's no there's no crazy answer. The mushroom doesn't like come in and tell you like, "Oh, this is what it is. You need to stop drinking coffee, start working out, and start networking at this one event, and then all your problems will be fixed." It's not like that, you know? It's something very simple. It's always something very simple, and typically it's perspective. It's just it's being able to make a choice about that lens you're looking through. Whereas before you weren't at choice, you didn't even realize you were choosing this other lens. Now you have choice in your life.
mm-hmm. And choice and wisdom and different
Yeah.
perspectives give us wisdom. When we're
Hmm.
always looking through that one lens and thinking the same thing again and again and again, it's like there's no movement. There's no, further possibilities other than what you really think and what you're focused on. And what you focus on grows. And if you're seeing a pattern in your life, it's important to look at it and
Absolutely.
find some tools. Psilocybin's one of those tools to get the answers that you might need, and
Yeah.
maybe some more answers you didn't know you were needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went into that journey with the intention of just loving myself. I just wanted self-love. And when I first came out of it, I saw all of this wisdom and I said, well, none of that is self-love, but hey, I'll take it. And it's funny because the wisdom that I gained led me in a path to being in this flow of life, as I said, which has just led to this opening of self-love that I never knew was there, that I never could have even imagined. And so, in this backwards way, I got my intention because it's almost like the medicine took me to my mind, to this place where I needed to unlock this one thing in order to access the other. In order to access that self love, I needed to open up this ease.
Sometimes we need a key to something else. We need to
Hmm.
unlock some things. I'm so happy that you got to unlock this inside yourself, and now you're helping other people unlock it, which is so cool. So thank you so much for sharing about that. It was really inspiring, and the lens visual is really so important to this conversation in general of how
Mm.
we focus through our own lenses of experiences in our life and how that affects our outward experiences. And it's just really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Let's shift to Tay. Welcome back to the main stage here. And anything you want to share with the community about your, positive psychedelic experience, your relationship with plant medicine, any of that kind of stuff? We'd love to hear more about.
Well, so many beautiful things and powerful things have been said so far, and I actually am getting closer and closer to the desire of having that experience with psychedelics. I can only talk about my plant medicine experience with cannabis, and I know that we have so many different ones, but the I would say the most powerful experience was when I had a breakthrough of like, I'm going to say sexual trauma. Cannabis and the moment that was created in that space helped me to face the experience that I had, and helped me to change the perspective where I can where I was able to meet myself, like the when I went into my mind under the influence of plant medicine, and who I saw was the version of me that went through that experience. I was able to meet her, and you know, not so much as like be super apologetic, like, oh, I'm so sorry that it happened to you and things like that, but just to hold that part of me. I felt like cannabis allowed me to face that version of myself at this time of my life, embrace that version, and then try to and work to replace some of those feelings of not being safe, not being beautiful, especially when it came to sensuality and sexuality. There was some discomfort and fear of even seeing and touching myself in those type of ways. And so I would say that it was really powerful, and created a breakthrough for me and some transformation in this space, using cannabis plant medicine as a healing tool in that type of way.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing about that. I know it's hard to talk about intimate experiences, um, especially the ones that have hurt us in our life. But how beautiful you found cannabis as your plant medicine of choice to unveil this next leveling of yourself, and to allow the space to face this version of yourself, this beautiful part of yourself, this discovery of yourself. um was this like a one-time thing, or was this an ongoing discovery with plant medicine and cannabis and this new part of yourself?
As long as I allowed it to be continuous, it became continuous. I think that um, sometimes we know what we're getting into when we are getting into plant medicine, psychedelics. Like we know that there is going to be some altered state. Um, and we have to be courageous and brave enough to meet that altered state, whatever comes up. And I know that there was a time where I felt fearful of cannabis, because in my community, I would say, as a woman of color in my community, there's so many just negative views of cannabis, especially like the paranoia, or the like the joke of all those things. And so that I was honestly fearful for a while, with even using the plant to potentially meet those type of spaces. And so when I had that moment, because I can't say that I heard myself in that space, like I had to go back into the space a couple more times to start to hear dialogue, and just allow myself that version of myself to speak more and things like that. So I created the space without fear, without limits, without conditions, and returned to that space to continue to grow in my understanding and healing.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that you have
So
given your
beautiful.
yeah, so beautiful. And how we can grow by sometimes as simply as giving ourselves the space to do so and the tools to do so. And both of those things, especially the space, just is part of the growing experience in and of itself, is knowing that's what we need and taking it. Thank you for sharing, Tay. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bevan, what's
Lisa.
up? Hi.
Hi. Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. I would love to invite everyone to smoke it if you got it. Like, if you're smoking right now, let's take a hit. Like, let's have
Yeah.
fun. That's my favorite part of plant medicine is how much fun we can have. So I'm going to smoke it.
Smoke it if you got it, Bevan says. Smoke it if you got it.
And to
Appreciate
the people listening to this recording in the future, hi, future people, smoke it if you got it too.
Smoke it if you got it. I love that.
What even is time?
um, well, thanks for being with us today. Do you want to share any of your psychedelic/plant medicine experiences that have been positive for you, or what your relationship is with this?
Yes, I would love to. I'm so excited to be here. Hi, everybody. I am a late in life stoner. I didn't really get into using plant medicine intentionally until I was in my 30s and I had stopped drinking entirely. I really gave it a good shot. I gave it like 11 years and then I was like, I don't think this is serving me. I'm gonna move on. And I didn't realize moving on was going to be to cannabis because I had only ever tried it paired with alcohol, which was not a symbiotic experience for me. It did not work well together. But cannabis on its own was like a level up, kind of like what Tay said. I did heal a lot, and I've loved every share so far. I have resonated with all of you. I cannot wait to go out and forage my own psychedelics. I'm very excited to let the first one be my guide. And just like moving into using plant medicine in a more spiritual and theogenic way has been part of my journey in these last few years. Like, I started a spiritual journey in my early 30s. And so I think the plant medicine came along as a sort of guru. I really like the idea of following plants, not people, and that plant medicine is a truth revealer. So it's revealing the truth about ourselves to ourselves, and I think it feels fun, and it is fun because it's supposed to be fun, because life is supposed to be fun. Our joy is our compass. That's supposed to be leading us. And for those of us who get great joy and connection from using plant medicine, I'm like, more power to us. It's my favorite antidepressant. I've dealt with a ton of depression in my life and anxiety. I feel like they're kind of two sides of the same coin sometimes for me. And like all of it is created just more ease in my life by regular use of plant medicine. And now, over the last couple years, I started like therapeutic use of psilocybin for depression just before the pandemic. So, winter pre pandemic was the first winter I didn't feel seasonal depression. And I was like, what is this life? You know, like I live now very close to the North Pole. So, like, my light is very limited in the winter. And I was really expecting I had moved from Los Angeles. I was expecting a wallop that year. And I was just regular depressed. You know, life was going hard, but not seasonally depressed. And I was like, this is interesting. And I was intentionally using psilocybin and cannabis as antidepressants. And fast forward the last couple of years, I've tried microdosing. I don't love it. It to me feels like, you know what I mean? Like if you have a sex act that's not fun, but like it's okay because it's on the way to something great, but that something great never happens, it wasn't that great. That's to me what it felt like to microdose. So I decided I just like a therapeutic party dose. Not I don't need to like always be I'm always talking to God anyway, so I don't need psilocybin or anything to get me to talk to God. But like the revealing place, right? Like I don't want to be incapacitated because I do this, I mean, straight up, I do it alone I live in a women's community that has like 40 acres of old growth forest. I stick to the path. I don't go off the path. So if something happens, I'm like easy to find. But like I just do my thing and I just take a dose that to me is so I use this is my dose right now. It's 5 capsules that are the 0.15. And so that's what I can't even do the math. I just know I take 5. And that to me is like a party dose. Like I'm gonna have a good time. There's like a reliable hour or two where I'm gonna be like definitely in the idea sphere, like getting my good ideas. I don't tend to create much when I'm using plant medicine, but I get the ideas and then I like kind of bring them to life in my sober times. But it's also been great too, like because as someone who has developed a very high tolerance to THC, like my edible dose is about 50 milligrams now. I don't know what it's 50, right? Pandemic dose is what I call it. But like I don't get the same sort of euphoria I used to get from edibles, but like when I pair it with psilocybin, I like do it like I'll just be honest. I've been grieving my dad over the last like couple months, and my mom is not an emotionally safe person for me, so I can time my therapeutic trip, which like I usually do about every 2 to 4 weeks. Like I'll have a therapeutic trip and I can time it so that I hit family dinner and the glimmering after party so that everything she says is funny and it's really easy for me to get along. And if she says something hurty, it doesn't hurt so bad because like plant medicine is my ally in opening up my heart and getting me sort of into my next level. So thank you so much for having me. I love Tokeativity. I love being in women's plant medicine community. I'm a very proud and excited member of the Glowing Goddess Getaway community. We have an amazing Discord full of, if you like to smoke with women and talk about plant medicine and pull oracle cards, like we are your party.
Bevan, you brought the party. I mean, how interesting. I'd never heard anybody sort of say microdosing isn't for me. It's usually kind of the opposite as we're talking about microdosing, and that's totally fine. You know, like you got to go where you got to go. And how beautiful that you've been intentionally using psilocybin in cannabis as your tool and really intentionally like going for the therapeutic trip, which, you know, I think we all need one of those once in a while where we really need to get real about things, get the truth to come up to the surface, to look at it and to integrate it in. And that plant medicine is our ally. And how beautiful that you also, you know, recognize the family stuff and how you're using that as a tool to work with your feelings around your family um and have a good time, right? Because you mentioned that joy is part of our compass, is our compass. That's what you said. Joy is our
Joy is
compass,
our
which I love
compass.
that.
It's showing us the way to go. Follow your joy, follow your bliss, and it's not the same as everyone else's. And good, we're all supposed to be different. That's why humanity is strong enough to survive itself. Like I think we have everything we need to fix the world's problem in the mycelial networks underneath our feet.
I adore you, Bevan, but I think you just ruined microdosing for me because now I have the analogy of not getting the climax and I'm wasting my time on these other things that I don't want to be doing if the result's not going to be what I want it to yield. That analogy is so hilarious. And now that's all I can think about.
I love you so much, Miss Kindness. I hope you think of me and not getting sexually satisfied every time you microdose from here on out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I mean, we all use it for different reasons. And so, you know, sometimes microdosing is for us, sometimes it's not. Sometimes going all in is for us, sometimes it's not. So I know that we've got Adelia here, and I know there's been some folks who want to share things, but we might run out of time, and we'll see where we get to here. Adelia, thanks for joining us today and for reaching out in response to my email to our community.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I know I replied late, so I'm excited to be here, and I just want to honor and thank everyone for speaking and sharing their perspectives. I think it gives so much insight from a variety of different personalities. But yeah, thank you, Lisa, for letting me come on.
Good.
So for me on my end, I'll kind of go quick because I know there's other potential. We want to get some other of the guests to be able to chime in as well. So quickly, as a child, I experienced a lot of trauma, and as an adult, I found myself connecting first to plant medicine, to cannabis, and that helped me through a very critical component of my life at that time. I had a ectopic pregnancy, and have had a journey of miscarriages. However, once the pandemic hit, there was things that just made me really want to relook at my life overall. I have an event ticketing platform, so from a business perspective, that was getting hit, and just from a life perspective, I was just kind of burnt out, to be honest. I love working, but I work a lot and I didn't have balance. Miss Kindness can vouch for that. She's always was preaching to me, you need to find balance in your life. And with the pandemic, I was like, I need to figure something out. I need to work through some things. And on top of that, a lot of that trauma that has been throughout my life was starting to come up. Just in my actions and how I would react to situations. And so that's when I started studying psychedelics, specifically psilocybin. I took about 6 months of researching and researching articles, documents, just all the different things that I could find and consume to really figure out if this was the route I wanted to go. And it was. I began, so for the past 2 years, I've been microdosing about 2 to 3 times a week, on and off. Not There's been months breaks where I take, in between periods. And with that experience, I've been journaling the whole time and really fine tuning and trying to connect with that trauma and allowing myself to try to heal from it. However, it wasn't until literally 2 weeks ago I was asked to participate in this specific program where I had a facilitator, and this was all virtual, but I had a facilitator. I met with them in the beginning. She spoke to me about what I really was wanting to connect with, and I shared with her about the things that happened in my past life, in my life as a younger woman and child, and she really helped me kind of prepare for this journey. I've had macro dose journeys before, and but I've never prepared like this in this way. And this was honestly the most beautiful feeling and experience I've ever went through. She told me to dose with 2 grams of golden teachers. I went into my room by myself, and I just kind of had this whole space. I put blankets down. I had coloring books. I had a playlist, and I I cried. I cried tears of sadness, of pain, of grief, of frustration. I cried tears of happiness, of beauty, of just honoring myself. And I even felt at one point just an embodied of empowerment. And honestly, I finally have been able to let go of the grief that I have put on myself. For the miscarriages, I also was able to let go of a lot of things that I've been holding on to, as a woman. And it was just the most beautiful thing. And that was, so it's a weird kind of regimen that I've done. Microdosing has helped tremendously. It's helped with that clarity that Miss Kindness spoke about. It's helped me with anxiety and even depression. And it's definitely even helped me get off my ADD medicine. I don't take that anymore. But then these journeys where I've had these macro doses, especially this last one was honestly life changing, and I feel so much lighter. And yeah, I'm not too sure much of I could continue to go on, but I'll end up rambling. So I want to give others time to speak. But that's just a little bit of what has been going on and my most recent experience.
Wow. Adelia, how incredible that you had been on the microdosing train, but most recently and specifically was, having this focused experience. I'm kind of curious about, and I'm sure others are, of where are these people who are helping to, with trips, and where do you find out about trip sitters and stuff? So I'm curious if anybody wants to share in the comments. Or anybody who's on stage who has resources or what have you. Where do we find this information out? How do you find these people? And it sounds like Jill's one of those people. She's specifically in, I think you said California,
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area.
in the Bay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some people will fly me out or they'll fly out to me. Um, it's unfortunate that in so many places, you know, the legality is what it is. So it can be hard to find us. A lot of times it's just word of mouth. Somebody who's worked with another guy that highly recommends them will start talking. So I get like 99% of my business through word of mouth. And that's what kind of breaks my heart is how hard it is to get the word out because it's really risky. It's risky for me to say this here, right? Um, yeah, I don't know of an official way to find anybody other than to just talk with people if you're in these environments, to talk with people who are into what you're into and who are exploring in the way you're exploring and asking them, have you worked with a guide? Can you, you know, can you refer anybody? And oftentimes somebody knows somebody who's worked with somebody, right?
Yep. Um, I just wanted to push pause for a second. We're using the chat for the first time today. Caleb, please be respectful, or we're gonna have to kick you out. Thank you. This is a feminist group, and we appreciate your support. And if you do not support, we also appreciate you leaving, or we will kick you out. Thank you. All right. So, sorry about the interruption. Let's go with our two other guests here. Adil, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, hi everyone.
Hi, welcome. Love to hear what you have to share. I saw you raise your hand, and here you are.
Yes, well, I'm rarely ever on Clubhouse, but I was walked by today and I was like, oh, this is perfect because I've been having a question. So, um, I don't know for if other people have done ayahuasca, but I did it a year and a half ago in the jungle, um, eh, because I was having one of the worst depressive episodes of my life. It was so extreme and so bad that I was just like, no, I can't continue on with antidepressants. So, one day I was just randomly watching a Netflix episode, and there was a show, and I saw an episode titled Ayahuasca, and I was, I don't even know, I can't even describe what happened to my body. My intuition was inflamed. I spent the next 2 weeks, like 12 hours a day when I wasn't working, researching the crap out of ayahuasca. And then I booked a flight, and within 2 weeks, I was in the jungle. Um, I did 5 ceremonies. It absolutely transformed my life. Like, it cured the executive dysfunction. I no longer experience ADHD symptoms. I'm not on any medications. I've stopped SSRIs completely. So much has changed. I don't even get dysregulated anymore from complex PTSD. Like, all the things that had, the traumatic features that had shaped and just shaped who I was. All of that is completely gone. But then, in a way as well, I feel like I've lost my creativity, or my not my creativity because I'm still creative, but I've lost the quality that made my talent the way it was. Um, and I've spoken to a bunch of people who are either, ayahuasca like guides or coaches or people involved with the ceremonies, whether they're shamans or not. And they've all told me like it takes about a year to integrate, relax, think of this as like cosmic surgery. So it's been a year and a half now. And as appreciative and grateful as I am for the many benefits I have, it's also a little unnerving to feel like, oh my God, like I can't write the way I used to. Like, it's just, and I'm a fiction story writer, right? So to have that be rusted through is just, I don't know. It's a little upsetting, but I'm hoping and praying that what they've told me is true, that eventually it will integrate. But do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Can you say you've lost your creativity?
Not my creativity. I've lost the edge or the sharpness of my talent. Like, there were places I could go creatively when I was writing fiction. Like, I could feel the difference in my prose. So eh, think of it like if you're a dancer, a professional dancer, and before there was like limbic activity, such smooth motor coordination, like you could direct your body what to do and where to go, and it flowed effortlessly. but then you wake up from a surgery and now you're disjointed, you're rusty, you don't feel like yourself anymore. You're not the same.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I guess from an ayahuasca perspective, I have done ayahuasca, and I did not go to the jungle, but I did go to like a what I understood was a legal ceremony through a church. Do I go to that church? No. But I was invited to go and participate, and I did. And um I can't speak to your specific, experience, because everybody's different. I do think it's beautiful and amazing that you have, your medication has shifted. You're not taking medication anymore. It's helped you with your ADHD and cured you of some things. And I love the idea of the cosmic surgery. I think that's a very interesting visual. I just wonder if there's other things in your life that maybe it's not just this experience, but it's like inspiration. um as a creative person, we need to be inspired. We need to have like environments that inspire us, and to detach ourselves from toxic people and situations to create space around it. And so I guess my question around it is like, I don't know, and maybe maybe doing some other things like psilocybin could help you with your answers to questions like this, is like, how can I find my edge again, and what does that look like? And I don't know what the answer is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for sharing about that. And I'm glad you were talking about ayahuasca. It's not something we've talked about in this conversation, but I'm really glad that it got brought up. And I hope that I hope you'll continue to have this conversation with us. We do have our Psychedelics and Plant Medicine Tokeativity Social next Wednesday, so we can continue the conversations there. We will be having some specific focal points there. Why don't we wrap up our Clubhouse today with Alicia? And you were in the audience here, and you wanted to share a little bit about your experience. So why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know where you're joining us from and what you wanted to say. If you want to go ahead and unmute your mic, and I can't do it from this side. You got to do it from your side.
There we go. Sorry.
That's
Can you
okay.
guys hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
um, Hi, I'm Alicia. I am in Eugene, Oregon. I, you know, I was a stoner in high school and early user, and then I stopped when I got older and like older 20s. And then in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so I came back to cannabis from a much more medicinal perspective than I had before. And it was really interesting just seeing how much more receptive people are when there is that kind of understanding about it. um, but fast forward after finishing cancer treatment, the post cancer is probably harder than going through cancer. And a lot of the issues I was struggling with around like depression and anxiety, somebody started recommending microdosing to me. And so I started using mushrooms for microdosing, and that's been super beneficial just in I, echoing a lot of what people have said here, decreasing other medicines, feeling more connected, you know, um, just kind of getting more in tune with my own intuition again. But the reason I really wanted to jump on and share is I've been reading this book called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wolleben. Um, and it's all about how trees interact. Mycelium are the great communication intermediaries between all of the trees. So they talk about how trees of all species can communicate with each other via their roots that connect to the mycelium. And there's this one line I thought I would share. Um, they termed this, came up with this term called the Wood Wide Web because it's this whole network that connects all of our forests. And they say the fungi are pursuing their own agendas and appear to be very much in favor of conciliation and equal distribution of information and resources. And throughout listening to everybody's stories, it was just really interesting hearing how that concept kind of interwove between everyone's experiences. Mushrooms are not necessarily the answer. They're just like the communicators helping connect you to where you can find the answers. So,
Wow. Okay, I totally wrote down that book, The Hidden Life of Trees.
yes.
And yeah, like I'm so curious about how and why. Like, why does psilocybin do this? Why do mushrooms do this? You know, the wood wide web is so nerdy to me because I'm like a total web. So I'm like, oh my God, this is really interesting and super curious. We could probably have a whole conversation about this specifically about the web. Maybe we bring this back around
Yeah.
in some way. I'm so glad that you were here to share that with us, and I'm so glad that you've gotten through your cancer journey. Congratulations, that's huge.
Thank you so much.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, y'all, I'm so grateful for everybody's time today and for joining us and for sharing, you know, your intimate experiences. This is just sort of the tip of the iceberg for us all. We have our
Lisa,
What's up?
Lisa, can I ask you where this is going to be recorded and posted?
Yes, you can.
What a valuable conversation this is.
This has been so amazing. So it has been recorded through Clubhouse and will live in two different places. It will live on forever on our Tokeativity Clubhouse here under replays. And then we download the audio file and we put it up on our YouTube. And I would like to invite everybody to go over to YouTube, search for Tokeativity, subscribe to the channel. We have over 150 videos from our previous events. And lots of education around plant medicine, lots of conversations around cannabis and feminine empowerment, as well as plant medicine. And so the last couple of clubhouses, there was one where our recording didn't quite work, but the last couple of clubhouses that we were able to record are also over there. They're also available here in our clubhouse. So thank you for asking. So I'd like to invite you all to our Psychedelics and Plant Medicine and Tokeativity Social. It's next Wednesday, March 16th. It's online from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. You can come and meet and network with amazing individuals, women. We're a community of mostly women, but we do celebrate all that support and celebrate the feminine. And you know, come network with us. You can join the conversation live via chat, audio, or video, and you can RSVP for free at tokeativity.com/events. Just a final shout out here to our brand partners, Kindleaf Pendleton and Sensi Magazine. Thank you once again for your support and dedication to the liberation of women through cannabis. Just a final shout out here to our brand partners, Kindleaf Pendleton and Sensi Magazine. Thank you once again for your support and dedication to the liberation of women through cannabis. If you would like to sponsor future events or work with us, please head over to our website, tokeativity.com. Reach out. We have all kinds of different ways to work together. You can become a member of Tokeativity, which we have all kinds of different memberships. We're going to be doing some exciting announcements coming up, and we would love to continue this conversation with all of you. It was so beautiful and important. You can see the whole lineup of what we're going to be talking about specifically next Wednesday. And thank you again for everybody for your time today and for joining me in this really important, intimate conversation. Appreciate you very much. Please give everybody a follow here on the stage if you found what they're saying interesting and you want to connect with them afterwards. We encourage you to do that. So thanks for joining me today, everybody.